The rain pounded the city like a judgment, washing over everything as if trying to erase the past. Emma stood frozen outside the towering glass building, her hands trembling as she stared at the cream envelope in her hand, Brooks Enterprises. Inside it, a single line that would decide everything. Behind her, Lily's tiny fingers slipped into hers. "Did I do something wrong, Mommy?" the little girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma knelt, heart cracking as she brushed back a wet strand of hair on her daughter's face. "No, sweetheart. You just," answered the phone. Just then, the massive lobby doors opened, and the CEO himself stepped out, Nathan Brooks, eyes sharp, lips unreadable. His gaze locked with Emma's. Then he looked at Lily. He didn't say a word, just stared. Until finally, with a voice like steel breaking, he asked, "Who taught her to speak fluent German?" Silence hung in the air. And just like that, Emma knew their lives were never going to be the same again. The boardroom was silent. Sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, dancing across the polished mahogany table. Emma sat across from Nathan Brooks, her hands folded tight in her lap to stop the trembling. She wore her only white blouse, the one she kept pressed in the back of her closet for interviews that never called back. Beside her, Lily swung her feet nervously beneath a chair far too large for her 7-year-old frame. Nathan stood at the far end of the table, flipping through a slim folder. It was Lily's handwriting, notes scrawled in neat print, half in German, half in English. The exact transcript from yesterday's phone call. His jaw tightened as he closed the folder and looked up. "You were the one who answered the call?" he asked. Lily nodded. "No one else did." It kept ringing. Emma opened her mouth to explain, to apologize, to say anything, but Nathan raised a hand, silencing her without a word. "You understood it was German?" "I speak it," Lily said quietly, almost apologetically. "My mom taught me. And Professor Muller, our neighbor, helps." The flicker in Nathan's eyes betrayed a moment of recognition. "Professor Muller?" "He's retired now," Emma offered quickly. "He used to teach at Columbia. German literature. And you're fluent?" Nathan turned his attention fully on Emma now. It was no longer curiosity, it was calculation. "I studied international relations at Georgetown," she replied, trying to keep her voice even. "With a focus on European diplomacy. Fluent in German, conversational in French and Spanish. Graduated with honors." She let the words hang for a second. "Then I became a mom." Nathan said nothing for a long moment. Then, turning his back to them, he walked to the window. The skyline behind him framed his silhouette like a painting, clean, sharp, invulnerable. "You've been working in the café downstairs how long?" "For years," Emma said. "Why?" His tone wasn't cruel. Just direct. Like a scalpel. "Because it was the only job that would let me bring her sometimes," Emma said softly. "Because I needed something stable. Because no one hires single mothers with 7-year-old time constraints, even if they can translate EU policy briefs in their sleep." He turned back. "Why didn't you apply for something more suitable? Something in international relations, like your degree?" "I did," she said. "More than 200 applications. Before I gave up." That word, gave up, landed heavier than she intended. She hated how it sounded. But it was the truth. And maybe he could hear it, too. Nathan exhaled slowly. Then walked back to the table. He tapped Lily's notebook once, then looked Emma square in the eye. "Ms. Warren, I'm about to hand you something that most people in your position don't get, another chance. I'm offering you a 3-month consulting contract, temporary, but well paid. You'll work directly with me and the international relations team. If things go well, it may become permanent." Emma blinked. The room swayed just a little. "I don't," she started, but Nathan cut her off. "Before you say anything," he said, his tone now softer, this isn't charity. Mueller GmbH is our largest European partner, and they were impressed with your assistant. He nodded toward Lily. They believe your daughter is some kind of child prodigy. I need someone who understands the language and the culture. Someone who can help us close this deal. Emma stared at him. She had imagined 1,000 ways her life might change, but none of them started with her daughter answering a cafe phone. And Lily? She asked carefully. I've made arrangements, Nathan said. We have a corporate-sponsored childcare center. If you accept, you'll both be under my protection. That last word protection made Emma sit back slightly. It wasn't just a job offer. It was a test. A door. And she was already halfway through it. Lily reached for her hand and whispered, Mommy, this sounds like the thing we prayed for. Emma squeezed her daughter's fingers. Her voice was calm. Okay. I'll take it. Nathan nodded once. Good. Report to the 27th floor at 8 a.m. Monday. Bring your ID and sign with HR. My assistant will send you the security clearance paperwork this afternoon. As he gathered his things, he paused at the door. Oh, and Ms. Warren. Yes. Learn how to accept success without apologizing for it. He gave a look that might have passed for a smile, if you didn't look too closely. Then he was gone. Emma sat in stunned silence, the city humming outside the window, Lily quietly beaming at her side. She wasn't sure if she wanted to cry, laugh, or run. But what she did know, deep in her bones, was that the life she knew had just split open like a shell. And something terrifyingly beautiful was starting to hatch. 5 years earlier, Emma stood in front of a cracked mirror inside a Bronx apartment the size of a storage unit, carefully pinning her Georgetown graduation tassel to the edge of the frame. The diploma lay untouched beneath it, still in its leather case. She had thought it would feel heavier when she held it, like something triumphant. Instead, it felt like paper. And the weight never came from the degree. It came after. Lily cried in the corner, her tiny body swaddled in a blanket that had belonged to Emma's mother. The baby's skin was flushed red, her wails sharp, rhythmic. Emma rocked her gently, humming an old lullaby she barely remembered learning, something her grandmother used to sing. Outside, the street buzzed with sirens and the clink of bottles being tossed into alleyway bins. She'd turned down a position with a foreign diplomacy firm 3 months before graduation. The recruiter said the role would require travel. Long hours. No flexibility. It's not compatible with motherhood, he said plainly. Not at the entry level. No apology. Just facts. And yet, when Lily first opened her eyes and blinked at her mother, none of that mattered. Emma had made a choice, not to walk away from her dreams, but to place them somewhere safer. Somewhere she could pick them back up again. Later. Maybe. In the months that followed, she juggled babysitting, evening shifts at a nearby diner, and short freelance translation gigs that barely paid enough to cover diapers and rent. She taught Lily German by playing recordings at night. She'd translate bedtime stories line by line, whispering both English and German into Lily's ear. It was their secret language. Their link to a world she hadn't quite given up on. Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor down the hall, became a second grandmother to Lily. On nights Emma worked late, she'd leave the door unlocked and Lily would tiptoe over, bunny plush in hand. Mrs. Rodriguez would keep a plate warm. Never ask for money. Just stories about what Lily had learned that day. At age 5, Lily surprised her with a perfect Guten Morgen, Mommy, and Emma laughed so hard she cried. It didn't matter that the faucet leaked or that the elevator never worked or that she sometimes had to ration food at the end of the month. Lily was learning, thriving, smiling. And somehow, so was Emma. She applied for jobs in her field every few months. Each time, she carefully rewrote her resume, updated her cover letter, practiced how to explain the gap in her experience. Each time, the silence that followed reminded her, the world had already made up its mind. There was no space for women like her, sharp, educated, fluent, but carrying a child on one hip and a backpack of worries on the other. Eventually, she found work as a waitress at Brooks Enterprises' corporate café through a staffing agency. The irony stung at first, serving espresso to executives in the same building where decisions that shaped global partnerships were made. But the job offered consistent hours and a manager who looked the other way when Lily came along during school breaks. Emma would glance at the glossy directories in the building lobby, read the names of departments, international strategy, global relations, East Asia division, and imagine herself walking through one of those glass doors in a pressed suit, heels echoing on marble. Then the buzzer from the kitchen would ring, and she'd return to the scent of scrambled eggs and burnt toast. One Thursday afternoon, Lily sat curled up in the corner of the cafe with a German fairy tale book, legs crossed, mouthing the words silently to herself. Emma watched between orders, marveling at how this little girl had become her anchor and compass. Their eyes would meet across the room, and Lily would flash a toothy grin, as if to say, "We're still in this together." Until that day. The day Lily answered the phone. Emma had been carrying a tray of soup to a table when she heard it ring, 5 times, then 6. The manager had just stepped out. Everyone else was buried in orders. And then silence. She turned, and Lily wasn't at her corner. She was at the counter. Phone pressed to her ear. Speaking German. Emma's heart dropped to her stomach. By the time she rushed over, it was done. Lily had scribbled something on a napkin, handed it to a nearby server, and quietly returned to her seat. When Emma asked what happened, Lily just said, "I picked up because nobody else did." And he sounded confused. But nice. She never could have guessed that a single phrase, "Guten Tag, Brooks Enterprises Café," would start a domino chain that would change everything. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Something was shifting. She didn't know what yet. But Lily's voice still echoed in her mind, ringing louder than any resume, louder than rejection. And somewhere, in a skyscraper above them, a man named Nathan Brooks was replaying a security camera feed of a little girl picking up his company's phone, and answering with the fluency of someone meant for more. Emma adjusted her blouse for the 3rd time in the bathroom mirror on the 28th floor. Her reflection looked like someone playing dress-up in a borrowed world, charcoal gray pencil skirt from a thrift store, cream blouse stitched at the collar, and borrowed confidence sewn behind the eyes. Lily waited with Mrs. Rodriguez 2 floors down in the executive childcare wing, a privilege Emma still hadn't grown used to. The night before, she'd barely slept. Nathan Brooks had sent for her, personally. No explanation. Just a cream-colored envelope hand-delivered at 8 a.m., "Please report to the executive floor." 9 o'clock sharp. Her breath fogged the mirror as she exhaled. When she stepped into his office, Nathan was already standing behind his desk, fingers steepled, posture impeccable. He didn't rise when she entered. Didn't smile. But his eyes held something new. Curiosity. Calculation. Maybe even admiration. "Miss Warren," he said, motioning to the seat across from him. "I believe we have unfinished business." She sat slowly, her hands folded in her lap. If this is about Lily answering the phone. It's not. He slid a crisp paper across the desk. This is a contract. Temporary consultancy. 3 months. You'll assist with the Mueller GmbH negotiations. Emma blinked. Nathan leaned forward, voice low and deliberate. "Your daughter's German caught my attention. But your resume, Georgetown, honors, multilingual, 4 years of professional silence. That made me curious. Why haven't you been recruited already?" Emma hesitated. "Because every interviewer stopped listening after I said, single mom." Nathan studied her. "Then they're idiots." He paused. "We're not. Mueller is our most important European deal. We need someone who can speak their language, not just fluently, but culturally. I need someone who doesn't flinch under pressure. Emma's voice caught. You don't even know me. I saw you manage a room full of executives while keeping a 7-year-old fed, safe, and fluent in diplomacy. That tells me everything I need to know. She opened the folder. The salary alone made her fingers tremble. 4 times her current income. Benefits. Childcare. Travel accommodations. I need 24 hours, she started. You have until noon, Nathan said flatly. Mueller wants a call tomorrow morning. And I want you on it. She signed. By noon, her name was on the company directory, Emma Warren, International Consultant, European Affairs. And by the next morning, she was seated beside Nathan in the executive conference room, headphones on, translating with measured precision. She matched tone, pace, and cultural nuance effortlessly, bridging 2 worlds with the voice she hadn't used in 5 years. The room applauded at the end of the call. That night, as she walked Lily home through the city's dusky glow, her daughter looked up and whispered, "Did I help you get your dream back, Mommy?" Emma smiled through tears. "No, baby. You helped me remember it was still mine." But the higher she climbed, the more the ground beneath her began to shift. It began with a name. On her second week, she received a revised Mueller delegation list for an upcoming in-person meeting in Berlin. One name stopped her cold. Thomas Bauer. Her fingers went cold. She hadn't heard that name in 7 years. Hadn't seen that face since she stood outside his Berlin apartment, clutching a letter from her American OBGYN and begging him to call her back. He never had. And now he was Mueller's lead legal counsel. Nathan noticed her silence across the table. "Is there an issue with the translation?" he asked. Emma forced her voice even. "No, sir. Just unfamiliar with that name. I'll look into his background." Nathan nodded and moved on. But that night, in the quiet of her apartment, she stared at the name again. Not just a ghost. Not just her past. But Lily's biological father. He didn't know. Lily had never asked. Emma had never told. And now, she was going to walk into a boardroom in Berlin and translate his every word. Sit across from him and pretend their daughter didn't exist. Pretend he hadn't abandoned them both. The week of the trip arrived like a storm. Emma prepared obsessively. Nathan noticed. She deflected. But the tension followed her onto the plane. In Berlin, she walked into the gilded conference room of Mueller GmbH headquarters, the smell of wood polish and old money hanging in the air. The German team filed in. And then, Thomas. He froze. She didn't. She bowed slightly. "Herr Bauer," she said in perfect Hochdeutsch. "Welcome." His eyes betrayed panic. Confusion. Then something colder. Defensive recognition. Nathan watched the exchange silently. Throughout the morning, Emma translated flawlessly. If her hands trembled beneath the table, no one noticed. Not even when Thomas began using obscure regional idioms, clearly designed to trip her. She didn't miss a beat. But during the lunch break, Thomas cornered her in the hallway. "What is this?" he hissed in German. "Some stunt. You follow me here." Emma's face remained still. "You work for Mueller. I work for Brooks. Coincidence? Does Brooks know?" "About your daughter," she replied softly. "No. Not yet." He paled. "You kept her from me. You blocked every number I had," she shot back. 7 years ago. Remember that before rewriting history." Thomas stepped closer. "If you say anything, I'll claim you breached neutrality. That you came here with intent to sabotage this deal." Emma didn't flinch. "I have everything documented. Including your refusal to respond to my attempts to notify you. Try me." He backed off. But the moment left a mark. Later that evening, Emma stood at her hotel window, staring at the Berlin skyline. Nathan knocked gently and entered. "You were extraordinary today." "Thanks." But he saw it. The crack in her voice. The storm behind her eyes. "You know him," he said quietly. She turned. "He's Lily's father." Nathan's breath caught. Emma looked away. "I was 19. We met during my semester abroad. I told him. He disappeared. I haven't heard from him since." Nathan didn't speak for a moment. "Then, and now he's here. Trying to use this deal to corner you." Emma nodded. "And I won't let him." Nathan walked closer. "Neither will I." They stood in silence, two lives, two secrets, one shared truth blooming between them. Berlin awoke under a sheet of gold. The conference room smelled of fresh coffee and nervous anticipation. Emma entered early, alone, her steps echoing across the marble floor. She paused at her chair and gently placed a silver brooch on the table, Nathan's mother's, a gift he'd handed her that morning without a word, only a nod. She fastened it to her blazer, feeling the weight like armor. Today would end it. One way or another. The final negotiation resumed. Dr. Schmidt from Mueller took the lead, but Thomas's seat sat ominously empty. Then, 20 minutes in, the door opened. Thomas entered, expression tight, eyes darting. He no longer looked in control. More like a man trying to hold sand in his hands. Nathan didn't flinch. Emma didn't blink. They proceeded. Clause after clause. Emma translated in flawless, measured German, pausing only once when Thomas tried to inject a new financial condition last minute. She clarified its meaning. Offered a counter in real time. Left no room for ambiguity. No one interrupted her again. When the final signature hit the last page, the room erupted in polite applause. But Emma felt only quiet. Not triumph. Not vindication. Something softer. Like closure. Later that evening, back at the hotel, she stepped into the hallway with Nathan, her suitcase already packed for the midnight flight. "You didn't just translate a contract," Nathan said. "You built the bridge for it to exist." She looked up at him. "You trusted me to do it. When no one else would've." He shook his head gently. "I didn't trust you. I believed you." They stood like that for a long moment, two people on the edge of something unspoken. Then the silence broke. "Emma," a voice called behind them. "Thomas." He held an envelope. His face was no longer smug, just weathered. Uncertain. "I wrote this for Lily," he said, handing it to her. "Not to change anything. Just, so she knows I exist." Emma took it without a word. "I'm sorry," he added. "I didn't know how to be a father back then. I probably still don't." "Neither did I," she replied softly. "But I tried." He nodded, turned, and walked away. Back in New York, autumn painted the city in fire and wind. Emma stood with Lily on the steps of a school auditorium, both dressed for her second-grade heritage presentation. Inside, children recited poems in Italian, Spanish, Korean. Lily's turn came. She walked onto stage in a handmade dress sewn by Mrs. Rodriguez. Emma waited at the back, heart trembling. Lily took the mic. "This is a German poem about courage," she said. "My mom taught me." Then she glanced toward the wings. But someone else helped too. Emma blinked. Out walked Nathan. He stood behind Lily, not speaking, just placing a hand on her shoulder. And Lily began. "Mut ist, lies zu weinen. Und trotzdem zu sagen, mir geht's gut." Courage is crying quietly. And still saying, "I'm okay." The audience hushed. A teacher wiped a tear. When the applause ended, Emma didn't move. Later, in the parking lot, she looked at Nathan. "You didn't have to come." He smiled. "You said this was the first time she'd speak German in public. That felt like something worth showing up for." She looked down. "That's what I'm afraid of." "What?" "You showing up. Again. And then not." Nathan's eyes softened. "Emma, showing up for you and Lily isn't an obligation. It's a privilege." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Not a ring. A key. It's to the guest house. My place. You don't have to say yes. But I'd like for you and Lily to have a place that doesn't leak when it rains. And maybe, doesn't feel so borrowed." Emma took the key, fingers shaking. That night, as Lily slept on the couch of their old apartment surrounded by packed boxes and the smell of worn books and dreams, Emma sat at the table rereading Thomas's letter. It was gentle. Honest. Imperfect. But enough. She folded it carefully and placed it in Lily's memory box, next to her first German workbook and the café notepad where she'd taken that unexpected call. A month later, Emma stood at a podium in Brooks Enterprises' main auditorium. The company was launching a new international education initiative, inspired by her story. Her story. She spoke of second chances. Of single mothers and silent brilliance. Of little girls who answered phones and accidentally cracked glass ceilings. Behind her sat Nathan, smiling. In the front row, Mrs. Rodriguez. Lily. And Rebecca Stevens, arms crossed, still processing the fact that Emma Warren now led an entire European division. After the event, Lily ran to her, clutching a brochure from the company's new foundation. "Can I help teach German to other kids, Mommy?" Emma crouched. "One day, baby. Maybe you'll run the whole program." Lily beamed. "Like you." Emma smiled. "Better." In the months that followed, the foundation grew. Emma's role expanded. And the guest house? It slowly became home. On a quiet winter morning, with snow dusting the windows, Emma awoke to the sound of Lily humming, half German lullaby, half nonsense melody. She walked into the kitchen. Nathan stood there, apron tied, flipping pancakes badly. "You're burning the left side again," she teased. He shrugged. "Balance. Life needs a little crisp." Emma laughed. For the first time in years, the sound didn't feel borrowed. She belonged. Not because of luck. But because she dared to answer her own call, just as her daughter had. And together, they'd rewritten the ending.